You ready for another Fusion Friday? See quite a few people in here. I'm going to kick this off here any minute. As always, I apologize, guys. I live in a motorhome. My internet is terrible. However, I am still Fusion Phil here at NexGenCAM. This week, we're going to jump in and we're going to review how we can actually set up modulating. That TDG 911, I think if you leave me a comment after this, dude, I'm happy for you to look at my audio and see what we could work out to get this better. I can also turn it down just a hair. Is that any cleaner? Check 1 2 1 2. Like always, trying to get into this rhythm is hard, and as you can see, I'm using a headset microphone, which is probably not the best choice. But let's go ahead and get into what we're going to talk about this week. So this week, we're actually going to look at what I say is the most important thing in the CAM environment, but it's also one of the best kept secrets out there when it comes to Fusion 360 and everything that you're doing in that CAM environment. So for a lot of you, you may have already seen a couple of pieces of information leading into this, but I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen and start with the simplest of simple parts. So if you've watched some of my other videos, this isn't going to be a surprise. I believe it's on one of my top 10 or what is it, the most important top 10 things or things of that nature, is you get in, you create your setup, and you're going to start machining your part, right? So the very, very first thing I always instruct people, and I think everybody overlooks, is the OK button. Why the OK button is so valuable is because in the world of Fusion, we always want to get as fast as possible to a path on the part so we can fix that path. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pick my tool here. And that's the neat thing about Fusion 360 is given the fact that I went in and picked a path and hit OK, it noticed I did not have a tool for this toolpath. The great thing about this is it works across all of our toolpaths at the end of the day. So again, is it doesn't matter what I'm trying to achieve. Let's say I'm going to rough out this part now. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. In this case, it already has a tool, right? So with having a tool, it's now needing a pocket selection or an area to machine. So as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Fusion, again, is predictive, and it's jumping to the section of information that we need in order to define that area. So as you can see, I now pick my pocket, and again, I hit OK, and immediately the software is recognizing where I want it to go and what I want it to do. This is something that anybody and everybody we deal with at NexGenCAM tends to overlook when we're getting a ticket about, hey, my toolpath is not functioning correctly, right? Because I can't get this toolpath to generate. You put in a ticket, and this is what we do. Again, it doesn't matter based on 2D, 3D, adaptive clearing, pocket clearing, contouring. The whole idea is to get the path on the part each and every time. So again, as I'm going to jump over to a turning scenario, I have my setup already created, but the same rule applies. I want to face off my part. The first thing you should always do until you're at a much more advanced level is to go ahead and hit that OK button. Again, Fusion prompts you to pick a tool. So let's go ahead and grab my 80-degree rougher, hit select. Again, the software is so smart that some people try to outsmart it in those first initial moves, right? So again, we're recognizing our stock from our setup. We're automatically finding the face of our part, everything and anything when it comes down to it. And this continues to work through everything we do. Again, I picked my roughing cycle. I've hit OK. Now that I've actually got a path on my part, we can, of course, go in and start to modify things and play around with our path. Again, something very common, another kind of quick tip here is when you're trying to edit the blue lines, and I say the number of blue lines or where the blue lines are going, it's always going to be in your passes tab, and that's where your blue lines sit. So again, in this case, I don't want to allow grooving. Go ahead and hit OK. Because my stock is the same size as my part, again, it's predicted where it needs to go with minimal effort. Again, it's much easier for me to revisit a toolpath a couple of times and change things like my step down to accomplish that task. Again, it doesn't matter what part we're looking at or what we're doing, we could start to step up the ante, right? So let's say we're going for a 3D kind of scallop strategy. If I use that mentality of actually just hitting OK, it's giving me a tool, Go ahead and give this guy a 1/4-inch ball end mill. What you're going to see is this is going to take a long time to calculate. This is where we like to say you want to give it a boundary in some cases to cut down dramatically on. So again, I do have a nice little fancy chart that we built here. You should all be able to see that chart. What a toolpath calculates is the most important thing is a tool or hit OK, and it's going to prompt you for a tool. And in this case, on this toolpath, we're working with a multi-axis scenario. So let's go ahead and pick our boundary to limit how long that toolpath goes. And then again, we just hit OK. So whether it's pick a tool, hit OK, pick a tool, go to a boundary and hit OK, or lastly, we're going to see some multi-axis orientation, but it all ends up the exact same at the end of the day. So again, we're going to look at this toolpath. If I wanted to calculate it much faster, again, not to sales pitch the idea that we have another video coming up on some bench testing and computer specs, but it took 15 seconds to calculate. It wasn't forever. I'm also running streaming software and everything else. But let's go in and say, in this case, we have our tool. Let's give it a boundary, and let's get what we want directly on the part in a small area before we go bigger. And again, with very minimal mouse clicks, we're getting outcomes based on what we're doing. And that's the key element here, right? So again, we jump over one more time. We look at maybe a mill turn part. We have this guy set up as a mill turn operation. I have my X, Y, and Z. Again, as fast as I hit OK, the software tells me I'm missing something. So I'm going to go ahead and go back here, and I'm going to pick my Z axis, make sure it's pointed the right way. Let's say I want to do 2D adaptive clearing even in an environment. So again, I say 2D adaptive clearing. I define my tool, or I can hit OK because there is no tool, and then I'm prompted to go out and get a tool, right? So this is where you all find out that I have no reference of scale, but that 1/4-inch end mill still needs a pocket, right? So again, that pocket comes out. It's asking me for a pocket selection. A little tip here is if you hold the Alt key, you can pick one chain and then pick it a second time to extend it where you want it. Again, we want to wrap this toolpath all the way down and around. So give me a second here to define all my edges. And then again, we can hit that OK button, creating our pocket. So I failed to do tool orientation. Again, in a mill turn or a multi-axis situation, my chain looks extremely funny. So again, now we do tool orientation to get it aligned to the Z and get that pocket to look the way that it's supposed to be. Again, that's going to be a completely terrible toolpath. And if anybody out there can guess why it's a terrible toolpath, throw it in the chat before I go back in and change it. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. I don't know how big of a delay we have. Not seeing any comments in the chat, so either you're all completely confused or there's just too big of a delay. Well, based on our boundary that we've selected, we could be on the wrong side of our chain, or as you're seeing me make, the number one mistake that I like to make is creating too many chains. So again, we go back a second time. I'm going to redefine my boundary around my part. And then again, we're just going to hit OK, and we're going to let the software do what the software needs to do. So as you're seeing here, based on my open chain, do keep trying to close it in, which is throwing off my toolpath. So I'm going to give it a few more chains here on this part to get everything sealed up and cleaned up and try to get that open toolpath in there. So again, I still am going to hit my OK button. I get the same outcome. That could be because my chain is on the wrong side. You guys are all getting to see me screw this up in real time. And why my toolpath isn't working or recognizing my boundary is coming down to that chain selection. So again, in the world of Fusion, it's as easy in most cases just to hit OK on a toolpath to get an outcome. Even with your setup, you guys can get away with this. Is maybe I want to do the back side of the part. Again, as long as I get my XYZ the right way, I can simply hit OK and start to work on that part. So again, we've already done it this way. I'm going to go back and flip my Z-axis the polar opposite and hit OK, and I'm set. Even in my milling strategies, again, you can actually skip a setup if you didn't know inside of Fusion 360 and go straight to a toolpath and hit OK. Again, it needs a tool for reference, and it's going to face off my part. What happens if my part is in the wrong orientation? Here's a good example. Again, I'm going to skip a setup altogether, and I'm going to go straight in, face off my part, As you can see, my boundary is coming in from the side of my Z-axis orientation. I'm going to go ahead and select my tool as it's prompting me. So in this case, I want a 2-inch face mill. And we are completely in the wrong orientation. At least I got a path on the part to make that possible. So again, this is a secret that we use on our team all the time to troubleshoot a toolpath, to fix things going on. I just want to pass this secret on to all of you, and I hope it helps you from a beginner level to an advanced level to help cut down on errors in your toolpath as you're doing things. Again, small changes make big changes in the world of Fusion, and in most cases, Fusion's always trying to do the right thing out the hole. As always, it's Friday. I hope you guys are getting off early and you're watching this from home and not from work, even though it's only 4 o'clock on the East Coast. And if you're like me in Detroit right now, it's raining outside, so I have no idea what I'm going to do with my weekend. But with that, have a great weekend. Go out there, get rested up for Monday next week. Thanks.